Good evening, Unity on the Bay. Happy Monday evening. The last day of February, and the months go rolling by. Have you noticed? What is it? Course in Miracles. I think this is from Course in Miracles. I can't be for sure. Refers to something as celestial speed up, which is the acceleration of our movement through time and space. And it seems quite an adequate title for what we're all going through. The months just fly by. All the more reason to embrace every single present moment. Hi, Christina. Thanks for being here tonight, my dear. And everybody, let me know that you're here by posting something in the chat. It's the only way I know that you're part of our experiment tonight. And I don't know where that word experiment came from. I was meant to say experience, but I guess it is kind of an experiment too with life. Pam, got the book and have been reading it. Awesome. I really hope you enjoy it. You know, as I mentioned last week, it came to me at a really critical time in my life. And to me, it is just one of those books that I hold near and dear. And I hope it's the same for you. Good evening, Nancy. Hi, how are you? Hi, Peter. Thanks for being with us tonight. Cindy Binder, hugs and kisses to you, and slightly belated happy birthday. I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. I was thinking of you all day long, almost from the minute I got up, because you're a great soul in my life, and I'm very grateful for your arrival on the planet and your continued thriving on the planet. Arriving and thriving, that's what we want, right? So thanks for being here. Again, this is an interactive program, so if you're watching tonight, please let me know you're here by posting at least a little hello into the chat section. It's the only way I know you're with us. And then keep on contributing, because you're more than welcome, Cindy. And I pray you know it's true from the bottom of my heart. So let me know you're here and let's get involved in this. Hi, Geeta. Glad you're here, my dear. Welcome, welcome. I don't have a tight agenda in terms of the content of this book for tonight. Hi, Anna. Thank you for being with us, and thanks for letting me know you're here. And keep the comments and the observations rolling. We're continuing our 2-week-long discussion we started last week with Finding Yourself in Transition by Unity Minister Robert Brummet, one of my absolute favorite books of all time. And if you're wondering why I decided to choose this book last week and this week, and I don't imagine too many of you are, it's because I'm looking at a big transition in my life coming up the end of this year in October when I retire from field ministry, which comes, as all endings do, with a certain level of, I'm going to be real honest and say, a little trepidation and curiosity as to what exactly the future will hold, because my guidance was that this was the action I was to take. And you know how guidance is. You receive it, and especially if you receive it with real clarity and just real clarity, strength and power behind it. You know that it's yours to do, and then the details typically work themselves out, but it's often a walk of faith. Brummet, I don't think he uses these exact words. I've adapted them for my own journey. The words being that every new beginning starts with an end. And the end for most of us is the most challenging time because we just are not very well programmed to handle endings in our culture. And there are cultures where endings, where the experience of death and passing on are actually celebrated as great accomplishments, as graduations, if you will. We don't really view it that way so much in Western culture. We tend to dread endings, when in actuality, an ending must occur in order for a new beginning to take place. You've got to be able to let go of what was in order to embrace what is and what can be. But the ending, nonetheless, is usually a challenging time. We shy away from acknowledging endings. And I just want to say to you tonight, if you are facing an ending of any kind, and I believe you are, because I think this is a perpetual process of endings, walking through the wilderness and emerging into new beginnings. That's life. Every cell in our body right now is engaged in that cycle. There are cells that are ending their life cycle, and there are cells that are meandering, I believe, in the wilderness, and there are cells that are standing at the threshold of exciting new beginnings. It is a process. I would even go so far tonight as to say it is the process of life. It is the process of evolution. And every step of it is beautiful and sacred and holy. It's just difficult to remember that. We talked last week very briefly about endings. And let me know your thoughts on this in terms of this cycle. A lot of times I think we actually believe we can walk through life without facing significant endings or wrapping up chapters. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, I think it's, and I think once you realize this, I'm sure I said this last week, but I think once we realize that the ending is just one piece of a cycle, it takes a lot of the fear away from it. Because if you are facing an ending and you realize it's part of a cycle that's going to drive you through some wilderness, some unknown, but you will arrive at a new beginning, and that new beginning will always, always, always be better than where you were when you experienced the ending, because that's the natural way of life. I often compare it to an ascending spiral. Even though sometimes in an ending, it may seem as though we've been through this exact situation before, we haven't. It may seem like circumstantially like a very similar situation, but you're on a different level or a different degree of consciousness and awareness. So you're not the same person that went through the last major change that you went through. You're a different person. And I say, praise God to that. Makes change a lot easier when you realize it's a process and it's designed for your good. It's inevitable because it's part of life, and life can be trusted. That's my 2 cents worth anyway. If you disagree, I welcome your perspectives always. Christina, always. And we will always be guided by the divine to the path we have to take. Yeah, so true. And that's why I'm going to digress here for a moment. That's why developing our relationship, which I believe is the most holy of all relationships, the relationship with whatever you want to call it. I'm of late calling it our original being. That is the essence of ourselves. But whatever you choose to call it, higher self, the Christ, the Buddha nature, it's so important to develop a relationship with this on an ongoing basis, just as you would a dear friend who you would want to be in the presence, the company, and companionship of, regardless of whether or not they're able to meet a need you may have or an expectation you may be holding. You just want to be with them. And that's the beauty of prayer and meditation, and developing a really close, tight, reliable relationship with your inner being, with your higher nature. Because as you do that, you're going to learn to recognize that voice. That's what happened to me. Got the voice. This chapter is concluding. Didn't like that voice, asked to hear another voice. But hey, I'm not going to argue with the universe. I'm not going to argue with God. Pam says, even Unity on the Bay is in change with the possibility of a new location. That's so true, Pam. And we've been engaged in this change. I believe Unity on the Bay is a very powerful spiritual vortex of energy. And I don't think you can be in a vortex like that without any organization that's in that vortex experiencing it, and any individual. So I think we're all going through this transformation. But yes, we do have, as our board president, Eddie Dominguez, mentioned a week ago Sunday, we do have a location that we kind of have our eye on. We can't talk about it right now because it's premature and the negotiations are still underway. But I will say one thing, I'm very intuitive when it comes to real estate, probably just like you, Cindy Binder. And I feel like I know what I know when I know it, when I see it. And I had a very good feeling about this. So hopefully it won't be too much longer before we can share more information with you on it. And it's not just a new building. The transformation that Unity on the Bay is poised to move into will redefine us. It will be what's that word? It will transcend and include. So it will include everything you've known Unity on the Bay to be. It'll still be there for you, but it's also going to transcend the identity that we've known. I believe this is possible, and to redefine church as we've known it and break the boundaries of traditional church and religion. Not that there's any of my personal agenda in this, but it's always been my dream. And I look forward to it coming together. You know, we have outstanding leadership in every level of our organization at Unity on the Bay. And we have also, I believe, an outstanding young fellow who's ready to step up to the plate, who has all the energy and enthusiasm to drive our plan into manifestation. And that would be no one less than Reverend Juan de Liero. All right. So we talked about endings last week. Now let's talk a little bit about the void. And just the name, the void, you know, it's like stepping into the void. Cindy, there are no endings or beginnings, just a continuation. Actually, thank you, Cindy, because as usual, from my perspective, you're absolutely correct. This is all part of a process. And I said last week, the only thing we're doing here is breaking it into some pieces so that we can, at the level of our intellect, better understand what is a continuation, a continuum. So I believe that's very true, Cindy, and thanks for offering that. Your wisdom is always appreciated. Faru, ver FYI. Not sure what you're letting us know there, my friend, but a few more words and maybe I'll be able to catch the drift. So let's talk a little bit about the void. What a lovely subject. And again, thank you, Cindy. It's part of a continuum. We're all going through an ending right now, a void right now, and a new beginning right now, because it's in a very real sense, it's all simultaneous. It's just part of the continuation, as Cindy says so beautifully. All right, here we go. Page 84, finding yourself in transition. If an ending could be likened to an earthquake, and so often they appear to be, significant endings appear to be like an earthquake, then the void could be likened to being lost in the desert or adrift on an endless sea. In the void, time and space seem to lose their former reality. Self seems like a phantom, a ghost from a former incarnation. Life feels flat and empty. Nothing seems quite real. Every attempt to snap out of it or to pull oneself together ultimately proves futile. It's like trying to put It's like trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Carlos, hello, my friend. I'm glad you're enjoying the book. It's a gem. And since we've already discovered tonight that change is a constant process in our lives, then it makes a certain level of sense to master, to the best of our ability, our awareness of this continuum at whatever stage we may find ourselves in. So he goes on to say, the void touches our deepest fears of helplessness, of abandonment, of death. Indeed, most of us would do anything to avoid these feelings. And while that, I believe, is true, I also think that a lot of that comes out of our conditioned thinking, our conditioned programming around what an ending really represents and what a void really represents. Remember, my friends, at the end of the day, you and I are walking through pure mystery. I realize we think we know a great deal, but the longer I'm on this planet and the longer I've been engaged in this journey of spiritual education and hopefully enlightenment, the more I realize how little I really know. And that while I may construct like a sphere around me that says, I know what's going on here, I need to remember that's really coming from a very narrow perspective. And it's refreshing for me to be able to admit that this universe is, at the end of the day, beyond comprehension in so many ways, universe and beyond, the cosmos. And if I can adopt that state of mind and realize, in a very real sense, I'm living in this void every day. I may have successfully temporarily convinced myself that it's not a void and that things are predictable. But the reality is that I don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. And to be able to be at peace with that and to trust the guidance of the universe as we're walking through the continual void reality of life, it brings great strength because you realize you're not alone. There are many forces, seen and unseen, that are supporting us in this process. He goes on to say, in the traditional rites of passage, it is in the void, in the non-world, between worlds, that the initiate encounters the transpersonal self. This could appear in the form of a power animal, a spirit guide, a medicine symbol. Through contact with this higher self, the initiate is imbued with new powers which ultimately serve the entire tribe. That is, this change that we're going through is not just here for our own benefit, but it will allow us to open ourselves to the awareness of powers and gifts and abilities that we did not know that we had, that not only support and contribute to our own well-being, but to the well-being of all people everywhere. Concept from Thich Nhat Hanh. I didn't say it. It's, well, you were the conveyor of it. Cindy. You were the conveyor of it. It's good enough for me. So again, through contact with his higher self, the initiate is imbued with new powers, which will ultimately serve the entire tribe. Before he receives this power, however, he must face the demons within himself. And I'm just going to say in unity, if you don't know this, our understanding of demons or devil or Satan or evil is simply misunderstood ideas, misinterpreted ideas. So what we're dealing with, false ideas, I guess I would say. So what he's saying, I believe, is that before we receive the power that comes from standing powerfully in the void, we have to face the demons, the fears, the dark repressed aspects of consciousness that must be encountered and overcome. He is challenged to draw upon his deepest resources in order to survive this ordeal. And that may sound a little frightening. I have to face these demons and draw upon deep resources in order to be able to survive. But what it really is the peeling away of the layers of the onion. It's the peeling away of everything that is false. And that's not usually a very comfortable process. I will grant you that. But it can become much more powerful when you realize that it's not the end of anything, that it's a discovery that you and I are making in terms of the remembrance of who we are as God created us. It's actually really cool stuff. The ending, the void, the not knowing, the mystery, the I will say death of what we've understood ourselves to be, the passing away of old understandings. It actually can make even a challenging or painful ending much easier on us, you see, because we realize what's going on here, that this is a movement that's taking us always to a better place. So that's the void. And while it may seem uncomfortable and it may sound strange if I tell you it's our natural environment, it is nonetheless, I believe, true. So what we're doing through the changes is we're taking moments to just simply exist and to hopefully find our peace, even in the midst of so many things of which we cannot be certain. Let's see, Gita, an upgrading of sorts, a leveling up, unfolding the veils. Very well stated, Gita. Thank you. That's exactly what it is. An upgrading, a rebooting, a leveling up, a new programming that's going to serve us better. Hi, Cookie. Hi, Reverend Chris. Just talking to our awesome friend Kevin Rice about this very thing. Good old Kevin. I'm going to call him later tonight. He's, moved to California, as you well know, Cookie, but finding his way there in a beautiful new environment that I had the chance to visit earlier this year. I've not been too much to Northern California, maybe once to Sacramento, I think, but nothing like that trip that I made to see Kevin and Aaron in Palo Alto. But all right, so let's take a look here. Here's some tips just to run through these that he's offering for us when we're in the void. First of all, the quickest way through the void is to embrace each experience fully and then let it go. This is something I think, by the grace of God, I've gotten a little better. Pam says to tell Kevin hi. I will do that, Pam. I got to make a note because I won't remember, but Pam says hi. So the first thing is non-resistance when you're in the void. In other words, there's a part of us that will run away from these dark, shadowy, as he calls it, demonic figures in our mind. But that's not the way to overcome them. It's also not the way, I don't think, to overcome them, to just pile positive affirmations on them. I think we have to look at these aspects of ourselves that we have claimed as part of our identity and look them square in the face for what they are, which is false understandings. And we're not going to come to that realization if we just keep avoiding them or trying to push them out of the way, which I did for many years, lost in my, I will say, positivity. Nancy, grief can accompany change. Carmen Nevedo posted this. In the Lakota Sioux tradition, a person who is grieving is considered most wake and most holy. Void. Yes. If I didn't say this last week, I don't think grief is a terrible thing. I think grief has an element of beauty to it, if we're willing to redefine our idea of what grief is. So he's saying, first of all, embrace each experience fully. That's what I'm trying to do right now. There are moments as I approach October, have been moments and will be moments when I'm excited about returning to my family, a little apprehensive about the winter months in Missouri, but still I know it's the right thing. And for that, I am grateful. There are also moments that have just been overwhelmingly sad for me. And I don't want to shy away from that. I want to look the sadness, the grief, right in the face and feel it. And then also realize that it's coming from a false understanding of myself, I believe, in which I believe I can actually experience loss or can really experience fear. And by looking it square in the face and recognizing it for what it is, I can transcend it. He goes on to say, avoid making any decisions or long-term commitments during this period. It's just a good idea. If you're in a state of big change in your life, there may be moments when you feel like this is the perfect time to make a change, but really don't recommend that. Recommend moving out a little further out of the void and a little more into perhaps a new beginning. Gita, there is room for all of my emotions, allowing it all. So important. Resisting the change is what causes us the suffering and the pain. It's true. Resistance, which really at the end of the day is pretty much the same as fear. Don't attempt to don't attempt to rush your process or force anything to happen. Accept each day as it comes. Pray and meditate for regular periods each day. That's just an amen, whether you're going through big change, little change, or even if you think you're not engaged in any change, which I would venture to question. But trust in God. Amen. Take care of yourself physically. So important during times of change. And oftentimes the first thing we let go of is self-care. Pay attention to your dreams. They may be revelatory for you at this time. Keep a daily journal. Develop a support system. Could include counselor, friends, family, support group. And create some type of ritual to symbolize your passage from the old life to the new. So there's some thoughts that Robert Brummet is offering us on how to move effectively through the void. And then we get to the part we all like more than the other two, I think. And yet they're so beautiful. Each aspect that we're discussing, so beautiful, so sacred, and so holy. Sorry, I posted an unfinished thought from Carmen. The person has no layer of protection, nothing less to defend. So in the void, the ground we're standing on is shaken, and we are at our most vulnerable and open. Wow, I've got to check that one out, Nancy, because it's so true. Vulnerable and open to spirit, which really, although the egoic nature of ourselves, our conditioned self, just will avoid vulnerability and openness at almost any cost. There's something beautiful that happens in that state of surrender where we do become vulnerable and open and willing. And I think some of my greatest insights, revelations, and certainly growth has come from those episodes, experiences in the void. Now then, we come to the new beginning. And understand, I'm racing through this book to cover it in 2 weeks. There's a lot of, it's difficult to pick out just a few things I'm bringing to your attention here, because it is really a gold mine of insight and I think inspiration. He says, when a new beginning occurs, the external circumstances of our life reflect the internal transformation that has already taken place. Remembering what we all, I believe, probably know, our external situation is but a reflection of an internal condition. In the traditional rites of passage, the initiate receives new powers from his encounter with transpersonal forces and then returns to the tribe in a new way, prepared to use this new power to serve the greater good. The external new beginning may occur before or after we feel we are ready for it. It may be expected or unexpected, and yet as we pray for guidance and divine order, trusting in God at work in our life, the new beginning will occur at exactly the right time in the right way. This is so important because a lot of times in our insecurity, we may be craving to catch a glimpse of the new beginning, just almost like seeing it as a salvation from the uncertainty of the void. But just having to remember, when I get to Missouri at the end of the year and I'm in the midst of snow and ice and cold temperatures, I'm sure I will, and realizing that my only guidance to this point is to return to Kansas City and to build, further cultivate my relationships with my family and to write a book. I'm sure there's a lot more that's waiting for me there that I'm at this point completely unaware of. And I'm okay with that. I'm actually kind of anticipating it, like, what will, I remember years ago when I was going through my divorce, Mary Alice Jaffola, who was at that time co-director of Silent Unity with her husband, Richard Jaffola. And I was in a lot of pain and torment because I didn't understand what I was going through at that time. And she said to me one evening over at their home, Chris, I can't wait to see the oyster that's in this one. Oh, pardon me, the pearl that's in this oyster. And of course, the pearl ultimately revealed itself. As it always does, thank God, we're in good hands. So important to remember through any change we're proceeding through. Here are some very good questions that Pam, build a fire in the fireplace. Hey, number one, I'm praying for a fireplace. I wouldn't mind a hot tub, but hey, I'll take whatever comes my way. But the fireplace, I can see it. Me, fireplace, hot buttered rum, and my computer writing. Have to watch the hot buttered rum. If I have too many of those, the book might not get very far. Love you all so much. Love these Monday nights. So here's the questions he's asking us to pose to ourselves when we are looking toward a new beginning. 1, what is it that I have always enjoyed doing? 2, what has always come naturally for me? 3, what have I felt naturally drawn or attracted to? 4, what would I do with my life if I were not concerned with money? So often money is the motivation behind everything we do in life. Hi, Lourdes. Glad you're here tonight. What would I do if I knew I could not fail? We often think fear of failure stands in the way of so many of our fulfilled dreams. Here's one. If I were to die today, what would feel unfinished in my life? And finally, what is it that is so important to me that I would risk everything in order to achieve or experience it? Really one of the great things I think about the void is that it is a nothing to lose state of existence. when you're in the void and you've lost the familiar and you don't have those anchors to hold on to, you're what the spiritual author Walter Starkey referred to as you're in a state of free fall. And in a state of free fall, you've really shaken your attachments to all the things of the external world of time and space. And if we're not letting these things go as they knock lightly at the door, so that the process unfolds on a continuing basis, and we let things stack up, so to speak, then we probably won't get a light knock at the door. We'll probably get like a bulldozer ramming into the side of our house, because it's going to happen. We're going to change. We're going to evolve. We're going to expand. It's our nature. And it's only our conditioned resistance to that process that I think messes us up. So that's Finding Yourself in Transition, in the Cliff Notes version, to the nth degree. But it is a great book by Unity Minister Robert Brummet, Using Life's Changes for Spiritual Awakening. It's going to be close by my side for the next year. And it's one book. I don't often recommend every book I review here or talk about, but I will that one. It's a gem. And before we close tonight, I want to let you know what's coming up in the month of March. If you're not aware of this, Unity on the Bay is launching its annual March Meditation Madness program, which means that pretty much everything that we're doing is focused around enhancing the art of meditation in our lives. Prayer, meditation, contemplation, reflection. And so what we're going to do on Shelf Discovery starting next week for 4 weeks is we're going to review 4 different authors' perspectives on meditation and prayer. The first one is Lessons in Truth, one book that should be familiar to most of you. It's Unity's, it's Unity's textbook, written by H. Emily Cady under the commission of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. We're going to talk about Emily Cady's perspective on prayer and meditation. We're going to talk about this amazing fellow, Joel Goldsmith, The Heart of Mysticism, his perspective, which is rather unconventional. You might be able to see that I rather like this book based on what I've done to it. That's a good one. We're going to look at Unity Minister Eric Butterworth's perspectives from the book of In the Flow of Life on meditation and prayer. And one individual who's really enhanced my prayer and meditation life, that is Mooji, Zen Master Mooji, and this book, White Fire. And what you'll find is he, more than traditional typical writing, he uses very poetic language very powerfully to communicate his points. So we're going to be off on a great adventure in the month of March, and I hope you'll seriously consider being a part of it. I think we'll grow as we do every Monday night together, grow, expand, learn, and above all, remember. That's my invitation to you as the week ahead unfolds. Remember, dear friend, who you are. Remember that you are beyond all the changes of time and space. This is a spiritual being having a human experience type of encounter that we have when we face change. But you have within you a place within you, and I just remembered something I wanted to wrap up with, that is changeless. This is the concluding comment from Brummet's book that I want to close with tonight. Gradually, we begin to see that we are not living our life, but rather that our life is being lived through us. Life then takes on a flow, a rhythm, a synchronicity. With little effort, much is accomplished. So I hope that the week ahead finds you accomplishing much with little effort, because you are plugged into the flow of life and allowing the natural process of your own evolution through the experience of change and the rite of passage to bless you, because that, I assure you, is what it's there for. Have a wonderful evening. Love you too, Cookie. Love you, Nancy. Thanks, everybody, for spending the last 30 minutes or so with me. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next week, 6 p.m. Shelf Discovery. I love you from the bottom of my heart.